I had always imagined that when you introduced a Masters in Management program into your world-class business school, alongside the 28, 29-year-olds in the MBA or those doing exec MBAs in their late 30s, that it would bring this extraordinary energy and optimism. But actually, that same energy and optimism is in the staff. Certainly that's true at the London Business School, at Insead and IESE, as you will discover in the next 45 minutes, as we look at the sort of career opportunities that Masters in Management graduates can enjoy coming out of these wonderful business schools. So to talk about that sort of optimism, it's lovely to welcome Zeynep Fleuret. Zeynep is the Associate Director of Employer Engagement for the degree programs across Insead. Carlos Amela joins us from Barcelona. Carlos is the Admissions Director for Career Development Center at IESE Business School. And then Kira Hughes. Kira is the Career Lead for the MiM and the MAM, the Masters in Management and the Masters in Analytical Management? Analytics and Management.
You get fined if you say MAM.
Yes, and well we should. And we have to resign after only 6 weeks in office.
Yeah.
And Kira's from the London Business School. So we've just had a great session with your colleagues for thinking about next steps, the early stage Masters in Management and the sort of programs, these fantastic programs and the doors that they open. So with the three of you, we wanted to go a step further and really find out the sort of opportunities, the blue sky thinking that the Masters in Management would create. And Zeynep, just sort of big picture, you talked about a generation, perhaps in terms of their goals, their sense of purpose, and the Masters in Management just seems to be a wonderful way to unlock all of those ideas and that energy.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I was talking about how I was impressed by their mindset and their behaviors. So I definitely love working with them. I learned so much from them, and the way they interact with others. I think, we are all from good schools, so you get great access to career opportunities, but I think one thing they create themselves is the way they interact with each other, and the richness of this, I think, is fabulous. The way they see the world and the way they would like to solve the issues, I feel is very different, innovative, and it's very encouraging.
Right. Now they bring all of that energy, Carlos, into the program, into the classroom discussions. Do you also feel that energy in terms of the sort of impact that they then want to have in their subsequent careers?
100%. I mean, at IESE, we had to adapt to this generation. We had to make sure that the academics actually was appealing for them, not only in terms of the skills building, the networking, everything that our program can bring. We had to make sure that we could work in developing the leaders that they already want to be. And in our case, we found that these people this generation is very purpose driven. It's very planet oriented. It's very, I mean, with everything that our generation and the past ones have done to this planet, I think our planet is in better hands in this generation. That's how I'm going to say it. But yes.
Well, hey, that's really reassuring for us to think about. And now, of course, they're coming out of undergrad. Perhaps they've got a year of experience. But and Kira, there are a tremendous number of opportunities out there. It's a very hot job market in the US. McKinsey and Goldman and Google and others are all constantly searching for top talent. So, just why does it make sense to interrupt that, go back, get the Masters in Management, is in terms of doors it will open and the accelerator it will provide?
Yes, you're right, because I mean, obviously our programs are for early careers, so the average years of work experience on the MiM at London Business School is under 1 year. So why go back to school so early on in your career? But I think having done, I don't know, the 2 or the 1 year experience that they've realized, hang on a minute, there's an opportunity for me to go to business school and spend a year investing in myself and completely immersing myself in a whole range of opportunities and horizons I may not have even considered. And really being able to deepen that level of self-awareness that will then, when I go back into the workplace, whether I'm going back to consulting, if that's what I came from, or whether I'm going into tech, where I will be able to have a much better impact and from day one be able to deliver. And I think that's one of the real benefits of coming to business school. And believe me, if I was 22 again, I wish I had done this, but those days are gone.
In terms of that balance in it, because Kira talks about that personal development, they're picking up financial modeling skills, analysis of data, digital marketing campaigns. That there's tremendous academic content. But as you think about this opportunity going back to school, to hold up a mirror, perhaps in terms of what matters most to you, the path that you want to take, and it really is this maybe that's setting the building blocks for their future career.
Exactly. So I think what is also, like Kira mentioned, I totally agree. When you come to MiM, what you have is like 75% of the academic workload is very similar to MBA. But to be admitted to an MBA, you need at least 3 years of exposure to work, professional experience. In our case, the average in the MBA class is like 5.9, so it's like even 6 years. So that is something I feel to benefit from the MBA, it's required, because you go some sort of a deep dive in some special areas. The MiM has this advantage of having like 0 to maximum 2 years, and they really expose themselves across sectors. And I think all of our programs have like some practicals to do with like companies, to learn, hands-on expertise, and then integrated internships. So that is exactly like Kira said, you don't know what you don't know. By coming to MiM, you get exposed to this wonderful network and opportunities with careers you don't even know that they existed before going into something that may or may not bucket you into some sort of a special area. So I think that's the difference.
Right, because all three of your schools have equally have world-class MBA programs. So Carlos, that the whole, as I weigh up, doing the Masters in Management at this early stage, or perhaps 4 or 5 years later with the full-time MBA program, your colleague Javier said, there are things I just wish I'd known sooner. Is that part of it, that the MiM can't happen fast enough to give you that sense of awareness?
Look, Kira just said it. I wish I had known this when I was 22. I feel the same way. I mean, basically the MiM program, as it happens also, I'm sure in LBS and Insead, is basically an MBA packed into less time, and delivered and targeted to this kind of audience. So we're not expecting the audience to have the kind of knowledge that an MBA has, because they already have 3 to 4, 5, 6 years in the market. And in the end, what a MiM does is teach you how the world works, because the world is moved by business. Yes, I understand that in the end, you can have a certain drive. That drive could be love, could be ambition, could be whatever it is. But what facilitates that drive into action is the flow of money. And this is what we teach in business school, how businesses work. So these MIMs, they graduate at 22, 23, 24 from our programs, walking into any kind of business, from a mom and pop shop to a massive enterprise, and they can have a full-fledged conversation, and they will never see the world in the same way again. They can say, look, if I go to this supermarket and there's currently a big queue, I would open this, I would do this, I would increase the capacity. Their language changes, and they can have conversations that allows them to have better and more, make better and more informed decisions when networking, when applying to jobs, when launching their own enterprises at such a young age. So definitely a MiM is, to me, is an asset.
Right. If we take a snapshot of this summer, and I'm mindful, Kira, that your colleague Alexandra had said, from the admissions side, the class of 2020, 2021, 22, no class ever looks the same. But what about those that graduated this summer? You talked about, tech, consulting. What was the job market like for the MiM graduates of the London Business School this year?
It's looking good. I mean, obviously we collect our data up until the end of the calendar year. So it's impossible for me to give you the exact stats, but it's looking on par, and it was looking on par as in previous years. In terms of, well, like the other schools, we pride ourselves in having a really good reporting rate. And why I mention that is that's really emphasizes the close relationship Career Centre has with the students as individuals and as a cohort. So, you know, one of our targets is to have a 99% reporting rate. So that means of the 280 MIMs that we have, we need to know 99% of their, you know, where they're at in their job search.
Right.
And so that was akin. And then in terms of employment rates, it's looking good. We release our employment report at the beginning of the calendar year because it's 3 months out that we will report on. So I think it's going to be similar to last year, where without a doubt, consulting will still come top. Consulting and business schools, especially the MIM, go hand in hand, and I'm not sure that is ever going to change. And I don't think it should, and I think it's great, and I think that's why a lot of people come to do the MIM just as they do to do the MBA as well. I think what's more interesting, and obviously I can't confirm it for the 2022, but what I've seen over the last 3 years is the number of companies that recruit our students, and it has gone up significantly. So last year we had over 200 unique companies recruit from our pool of students. So that just shows, I think, as well, the breadth of organizations, not just consultancies, not just the big name consultancies as well. We're going to smaller consultancies like Guidehouse, where they focus on public sector consulting, and across the banks, financial services firms, private equity firms within tech and diversified sectors. And that honestly brings me joy, because what I love about the MIM is the breadth of career destinations that they go into, because something as a coach that you love, well, I love anyway, is working with students on their individual career paths, and having different conversations, you know, really working with a student that wants to go into a VC fund rather than a bulge bracket bank, for example. So yeah, it's looking good, but I can't give you the stats right now. I wish I could.
Well, when you've got almost as many companies as you have students in the program, that's a really healthy ratio and speaks to that sort of diversity. There's an understandable emphasis, Zainab, that we might place on that first job after the MIM, which you're providing a lot of support for. But how do you contextualize that? Because of course you're also providing them with tools, not just for that first job, but for the second, for the fourth, you know, for the 5, 10, 15 years of their career. So how do you begin that discussion with them to think about step one of many steps?
Yeah, I think in all, you know, top tier business school, our biggest asset is our alumni. So I feel the people and the cultures and the sharing, the nurturing enables them to see, and MBAs are on the same campus as well, so role models, and then global executive MBAs come. So you do have this role models in different stages of their careers. They do the, you know, commencement speech, we have workshops. I'm sure it's the same in all, you know, top schools. So they see where like if they chase consulting as their first job, they can leverage this into many different options and exit opportunities. If they go to a bulge bracket, that's a very logical stepping stone to pivot into private equity. If they want to do venture capital, then they should leverage on going to a scale up. So they can discover many careers like that. And what I see is that they have the intelligence and the motivation to ask the right questions. So for me, that is the learning. Like, I would like to take the whole credit and say we have such a fabulous curriculum that, you know, we plan all this, but I think we give them the mindset and people skills to be able to talk with the right people in the network to discover what matters for them. And the other side is the self-reflection. So we do have a lot of tools, a lot of individual coaching. I'm sure it's the same thing in every school, to enable them to determine their values. Because my experience is when your values meet with company's values and you are excited and motivated about the job, it's not like a job, it's just life, and you have fun, and then you excel, and the success is naturally there. So the superstars that I see down their careers, because it's not my first rodeo, so I know people from 2013, and I can see their career path. The superstars are the lucky ones to spend enough time for this self-reflection, and they really understand what motivates them, and they go to the path they feel really good and passionate about, and we help them to figure out what that path is.
Right, because at undergrad, if I'd studied art history, I might be inspired by Picasso. If I'd studied computer science, I might be inspired by Python. Now, Carlos, with all of those diverse backgrounds then coming in, and Zeynep talking about the sort of the tools, the career coaching, the mentor, I mean, this is this wonderful gift at the heart of the program to really let an individual explore self-awareness. How does it work, that whole journey that you're taking them on?
It first depends, it starts with the kind of support that we provide from the CDC, the Career Development Center, to students. So let me break that down, and that will help me answer your question. So we focus on three main pillars. The first is employer engagement, which is the staff that is involved with building relationships with companies. Like they're reaching out to companies so that they can come recruit. So we basically through employer engagement, what we do is we do career forums. So for the MiM, we have 2 career forums in the year. Outside of the career forums, for companies that cannot come join the career forum, we bring them still, whether it's virtual or they come visit campus on an ad hoc basis. So for example, on a Wednesday afternoon, we have Microsoft presenting and showing the options for IESE and MiM. And besides us, remember that we are on a campus, right? And we have students doing part-time programs. So from the executive MBA, from the top CEO programs and other open executive programs, we facilitate that networking as well. And so that's the employer engagement side. In the end, what they do is facilitate the creation of networking events. Then we have the student advisory side. The student advisory pillar is a team that is involved with teaching and training the students on the job search methodology. We always tell students or prospective candidates that we do not get them jobs. We cannot get them jobs. We cannot make a company hire somebody. I mean, it's beyond our control, but we can show them the doors. We can, facilitate, we can create the options. But in the end, this team, we teach them, we train them, we counsel them. So counseling is divided by sector, is divided also by region. So let's say you're interested in Asia. We have counselors based in Asia to help you with that. And then, but more than that, we also facilitate with, we have a very small counselor to student ratio. We have eight students per counselor. And so the attention is very personalized. Our doors are always open. We give you mock interviews, we give you sessions. For those that are still feeling lost, we have a specific program within the program to help you find what it is that you want to do. And sometimes we bring expert coaches. Sometimes we sign up with platforms so you can do the programs and build an assessment that we can help you interpret and everything. So the support is there. The final pillar is student clubs. So student clubs are student run, but they're supervised and mentored by the CDC. So what student clubs do is that they help students that have specific interests. So for example, students that want consulting, strategy consulting, because within consulting there's many, right? Finance, then tech, then industry, and etc. There's a club for each, and the CDC is involved with providing you with the resources to help you get into the sector. So when it comes to the preparation, but the students form a community, they do networking, they reach out to alumni, they bring them to campus, they do more networking, and this is where the beautiful things happen. So that's how we guide the students. We teach them how to do it. Our mission in the end, we have a website mission, but my personal mission and what I tell the team is that we want students to never come back to us again for help. we teach them everything. We teach them how to fish so that they do not depend on us.
Right, and then watch them take wing and off they fly. Perhaps with all of that support, Kira, there must be sometimes some more, not difficult conversation, but someone says, I want to become an investment banker. And how do you just start in the initial assessment and look at perhaps individual skills, aptitudes, even as we touch on what Zainab talked about a sense of purpose, to help them open up that vision and explore the many options they could pursue?
So you're right. Some of the students do come onto the program with a very fixed mindset. So our role as a coach is to open that up and embrace the growth mindset. And we tell our students that that's what we're here to do. That's why we bring different employers on campus to open up opportunities that you may not have considered. We don't need to bring Goldman Sachs to campus. You know who Goldman Sachs are. You know what opportunities they have. So yeah, someone who comes to me and says, I want to be an investment banker, of course, I'm going to work with them on that goal. But I will always be looking for ways to, as you say, sow the seed of, well, what if this doesn't happen? Because let's face it, investment banking is incredibly competitive. Yes, they have high number of recruits every year into their internships or their full-time analyst positions, but they're not just students from LBS, they're students from Insead, from business schools around, as well as undergraduate schools. So it is incredibly competitive. So you have to imagine what will happen if it doesn't work out for you. And for me, that I will focus on trying to drill down into the why. Talk to me a bit more about at what point, at what stage, in what moment did this become your direction of choice? So tell me what was happening there, what's the pull towards that area, to then see if there's any connections to, well, if it's not investment banking, it's the advisory side of things. So maybe there's other, I don't know, M&A advisory companies that you can consider, etc. So it will always come down to the why. Which can be hard and can be challenging. And sometimes you'll finish a coaching session and they'll leave. And as a coach, you're like, I'm not sure they got the answer that they wanted to get. But generally, you have to be content with, hopefully, you've just got them thinking. And also, as Carlos has said, and Zainab has said, our alumni are our best sources of inspiration. And I think with all of our schools, our alumni are so keen to come back and share their experiences and share what they wish they had known, at this stage of the program and how they may have done things differently. So I think those connecting people together, and I think having been at LBS for 5 years now, that's one thing I love doing, is thinking you really need to go and speak to this student, because that student was exactly in the same position as you 3 years ago.
Yeah, those connections. Now, if I draw on Insead alums, Zainab, of course, there's a very strong strand of DNA in the school around entrepreneurship. And I often think, well, perhaps it's, I would feel less burdened to start a business with fewer kids at the age of 23 than if I was 32 or 33 coming out of the MBA program. Do you witness that entrepreneurial sort of energy in the Masters in Management program?
Absolutely.
And where do you take it?
They're amazing. We have people writing their own code, launching their own app, doing the business plan for they are really amazing. So what I see also, international outlook that we have, this weird accent, I'm Turkish French, and like in the staff you have like 15 different nationalities, but it's the same in the class, in the faculty, in the alumni. So but I see also this cross-fertilization, like you are next to a Chinese AI person, and then you have an Israeli marketing, and then you have a Dubai salesperson, and then you come up with this seed idea of entrepreneurship, and then you never get that exposure elsewhere, I feel like our schools are like a platform of that type of nurturing. And for entrepreneurship, it's one of the pillars of Insead, actually. And for people who are curious to see, like, you know, there are really good ways and articles in PitchBook, Sifted, and all those areas they can take a look. It is, I think, based on who you know, than what you do type of ecosystem. And I think being in a school like ours and like LBS and IESE and all those top schools gives you like access to that wonderful world of people with really creative mindsets.
Right. And do you feel, you know, it's a great stage? Because I could come out, maybe do 3-4 years of consulting, look at lots of industries, lovely way to consolidate the MiM program. But, you know, for others, it must be a fantastic launching pad, and you'll be taken very seriously by investors.
So my background is law, nobody's perfect. So I'm very risk adverse, right? So I see this in when you bucket yourself in some area that is different, maybe you take less risk. When you are young, the mindset world is my oyster. And I think if you fail, it's just an experience. It's just a learning. I mean, failing at 22, I think it is not the same as failing at 52. So I feel like this is also matches with the way they live this adventure, which is world. So I think there is a good connection there. Yeah.
Right. That sense of adventure, or even, you know, how we might characterize such a diverse group, Carlos. You have a constant dialogue, you know, with multinational firms, with the top consulting firms, the banks, Telefonica, Santander, and others. What sort of feedback do they, what is it that they really love about IESE students? Is there tangible feedback they give you?
Yes. It starts with the clear distinction in their values. So IESE is a very values-driven school. I think LBS and Insead as well. I mean, I visited their campuses. You can breathe it in the air, and I really appreciate their values as well. IESE is very mission driven. Like, we make sure that from admissions, the students understand what they're getting into, because we seek people that can flow and ebb together, because the main question that we ask ourselves is, can this person become an alumni ambassador for IESE? So the values is the very first thing that they talk about. And specifically when it comes to feedback about values, we've seen it a lot from assessment centers. For those listening to the recording later, an assessment center is when you are in a center and you are assessed by the recruitment team as part of a group, right? And so you're doing group dynamics and everything. So in an assessment center, you can tell we've been told that IESE students do not seek to compete, do not seek to put others down. They are very helpful. They come with a spirit of service. That's the very first thing. The second thing I would say is the skills. And of course, being a master's in management or in business, clearly they can tell the business acumen first. So for example, MiM levels compete also with undergraduate students that are graduating from university. But the degrees do not go as in-depth in business as a master's does. And so you can tell the business acumen, the vision is completely different. The third thing that I've heard about is attitudes. So so at the beginning of our year, we have a careers boot camp where it's a whole week only for careers, and there's no academics, and we instill these attitudes. We make sure that when they're interviewing, they don't focus on the role, they focus on the 1 to 2 to 3 rows above that. And we also teach that the leaders are servants. So the attitudes come across as, okay, this is somebody that is optimistic, that is always resilient, that is pushing forward to solve the problem, etc. And the last thing that I would say is the leadership potential. Because of the aforementioned reasons, naturally they hold a little bit more gravitas. This was something that I heard in the last recruitment process that we experienced. And it was very much appreciated. It was refreshing to know, and it's something that we're definitely trying to dismantle so that we can do more of that. you know, but that's essentially the feedback. It's almost always been positive.
With the sort of qualities that might come across in an interview, Kira, you know, Carlos talks about gravitas, which is wonderful. You're continuing having to adapt and evolve. The last 2.5 years of the pandemic have reflected, you know, Zoom interviews rather than face-to-face. Perhaps that's opened up other opportunities for LBS graduates to then interview for a position in Dubai or in Sao Paulo. So how do you then prepare them and give them the sense of options, mobility that they could pursue, given you know, the way that technology is transforming this careers sector?
Yeah, and I think you're right. The number of countries that our MiM students recruit into has grown. It's always been international. I know we're a London Business School, and a lot of students will come here because they want to stay in London. But when I look back over the last 5 years, we've, you know, progressed from 23 countries to 29 countries in 2021 that they recruited into. So it's not necessarily something that's new. In terms of how we prepare them, so with our employer engagement team, they are sector driven, but they are also connected with different geographies. I think to open their minds to the perspective of global opportunities as well. I mean, the majority of students probably go back to home countries because language is going to play a huge part in that. But for a number of years now, and many of our MIMs go to kind of third countries, if you like, such as Dubai. And I very fondly remember one of our MIMs going to Santiago in Chile to go and start his consulting degree, yet he was French. And I think what helps them think about these opportunities is past stories. So having our alumni to demonstrate the options and the possibilities, and bringing them back, and we will hold alumni panels. And that's one thing I am grateful to the pandemic for, because up until then, I'll be honest, our alumni networking was on campus in person. We had lots of opportunities for our students to meet with our alumni in smaller, more intimate breakfasts, panels, to wider, large alumni networking. The pandemic obviously forced us to do all of that online, but it was fantastic because we could engage with those internationally located alumni that really wanted to give back and share their perspectives. So we could do, you know, consulting in Europe or tech in Germany sessions with alumni. And that has been fantastic. And that has stayed with us, even though we are, you know, back on campus in person, fully fledged. Yeah.
And
then addressing perhaps a question to someone in a Turkish, French background working at a school like Insead. Do employers reflect to you, Zainab, and even again through the last 2 or 3 years, qualities that they look for? When we think about the French person going to Chile, there's a sense of an adventurous mind. They've already chosen international studies for their masters in management. And is that something that resonates with employers? Because that's the sort of world that we live in, where you adapt, working across different cultures.
Absolutely. Like, the program is designed, they come in August, end of August, they stay until like February in France, and it's mandatory they all go to Singapore because we have a full-fledged campus in Singapore. And my counterpart who covers Dubai is a Swedish man who lives there for 12 years. So we do have a campus in Abu Dhabi as well. So it's very well integrated in our culture. But what I see from the recruiters is really the diversity is not linked to nationality in my mind. They really look for diversity of thought. And that is something I think you need to be willing to understand and have an open mind and non-biased towards other cultures. And if you are not like that, you won't like Insead anyway in the application process and talking with me, having an accent, whatever. So that naturally you know, shifts towards something that people who are culturally apt in navigating this international world. And also we do have classes, we do have professors doing big researches, database researches on that, like Erin Mayer. Culture Map is the first thing comes to my mind. Is really, I think, if you like that, if you like discovering other cultures, that is our DNA. And the companies coming to us also, it's very rare that I would have a very pure vanilla national company. The company coming to me will be very international as well.
Yeah. All three of you have described an alumni network that is incredibly proactive, and even, being able to use technology to have these small sessions. For our viewers, Carlos, as they're considering next steps, the Masters in Management, your great schools, having conversations with students or alumni of the program, what sort of advice would you give? Because they're probably very busy people, but also very loyal, proud members of the IESE community, in terms of approaching them through LinkedIn and doing that in a sort of a smart, respectful way. What advice would you give?
So we have whole sessions just for this. But if I could resume it, it's all in the message. We're talking about the tool, LinkedIn, leveraging the tool to make this connection and reach out to these people. And I'm assuming that your question goes around getting to that first conversation and then holding that first conversation. So getting to that first conversation is about sending a message that's so have you ever heard of Steve Dalton? He is a careers coach at Duke at Fuqua's business school. He wrote this book called The 2-Hour Job Search, and he explains his approach toward networking that has a very high success, a 40% success rate for people getting back to you with this message. So we employ his methodology and we teach it. And this message basically is it's called the 6 points. It starts with creating affinity. Hey, I am. First of all, it's very brief. Okay. Second of all, it has to start with affinity, like something in common, like, hey, I am also an IESE alumnus. Third of all, it's about them, not about you. So you're seeking to learn something from them. You're asking for insights about them. Fourth, it's subtle. You're not asking for a job. That's the worst approach that you can do, is ask for a job, because you need to focus on the relationship before you focus on the qualifications. At this point, I don't remember the 5th and 6th, but basically it's all on that message that prompts for a response. Oh, it also has a call to action, but just sending the message and getting the response is not enough. And because regardless of how helpful our alumni are, they're still people, they're still busy, they can have a bad day, they can have a great day, whatever, but some of them don't use LinkedIn, some of them just have profiles, but we need to know whether they're open to talking. Then comes having the conversation. And if you just have a conversation, if you just wing it, you're not creating relationship currency. You're not earning relationship currency so that the person can later spend their relationship currency to leverage their relationship so they can help you. So we teach students how to prepare for that conversation. You prepare your questions beforehand. You structure them according to categories. So for example, 2 questions on the sector that you're interested in, 2 questions on the company, 1 question on the role, another question on themselves, something personal to create that bond. All in all, we want to make sure that students can prepare for ideally no more than a 25 to 30-minute conversation that is high impact, that is leverageable for a future keeping in touch and whatever, that with the ultimate goal of leading to a referral. So that's how we teach networking. But in the end, have you ever heard of the concept, the elevator pitch? We teach that the elevator pitch is everything from when you begin to when you end. It's not just telling about who you are and why you're talking to. It's everything.
Do you realize how lucky I am hosting these webinars? I get these wonderful people, mini masterclasses. Now I've got Steve Dalton to check from Fuqua. And there you said earlier, Kira, I wish I could be 22, 23 again and jump into the Masters in Management program. You'd also said for the individual, perhaps with their career goals, really thinking about the why. So as we wrap up this session together, how can I bring those two together? Things that we wish that we had known, So what are the good questions candidates can be asking themselves right now about their next steps, about graduate management education, the MiM at any one of your 3 schools? And perhaps is that rooted in this sense of why?
I think, yeah, again, good question. Whenever someone's looking to make a change, I've always been keen to understand whether they're running away from something or running towards something. And so I think ideally what we want the new students or the admits coming to business school is because they're being driven towards us. It's not because they feel like they've exhausted something behind them and they just want to run away from that. So really reflect on, what it is you hope to gain from that 1-year investment in the MiM program. We do not underestimate how much of an investment that year is, and to really try and identify some clear goals for the program, for your time on the program, because the time will disappear in a flash. It's ridiculous how quickly it will go before you realize it. And I think the last piece that I really want to say is you have to come to business school for more reasons than one particular job that you want to have at the end of it. Do not come here just because there's one company or one role you want to have. We've spoken about it in terms of us training you and coaching you in lifelong skills. The first job you get after business school is not going to be the end job. It has to be much bigger than that. And because I think it's a bit like going in for a connection. If you only connect to someone because you want that referral, you're only going to be disappointed with the outcome. Okay, because that is no reason to connect with someone. If you come to business school only for that one reason, yes, you may achieve it, but you have missed everything else, around. So there has to be more than that.
Right. To bring us full circle, it's not just about one company, and Zeynep, it's not about just one job, but we do have one life. And whether we're initially risk averse or a sense of adventure, seizing the day, what would your words of encouragement, as you think about individuals you saw at the start of the program and these wonderful young men and women that you then see a year later, perhaps intangible qualities that you then see in them? They've got these great new skills, but this an inner sense of confidence and a readiness to face the world. So, what do we do with our one life?
This is very good. First, they can Google Simon Sinek, the golden circle. This is Kira's tip. And in my view, again, I will go back to the core values and be your authentic self and search for inclusion and acceptance. So it's like if you can find people who will accept you as you are, you don't have to fake it. You are your authentic self and still is the best self that you give, and people are happy to have it and create something together. That's the best place you can be. That's why I think when they talk with people, they need to listen proactively, not only what is said, but not the other things non-said. So you need to evaluate if the person you have spoken, it is the person that you can go, is the airplane interview. If the airplane is blocked 4 hours, do you want to stay with this person in exchange? And I feel like the Inseaders, they do. Like, I think there is a nice coherence and we accept them as they are. And I think that's the biggest thing you can have in your life. Just be your authentic self.
I've got new authors to read. I've got wonderful advice. I can perhaps use that. I hear that there's a new job opening in the UK in Downing Street. Thank you. Not only have we been able to talk about the partnership that you have, the support that you provide, and the sort of outcomes that these extraordinary individuals, that's testament to you, your colleagues, and the incredible work that you do with so much insight and so much energy. that you then share that and bring that to Centre Court is a real blessing for us. I think it was the last 45 minutes flew by. So I've made a few notes about affinities. It's about them and not you. I will catch up on all of that reading over the weekend. But for now, Carlos, Kyra, Zeynep, it's lovely to have you with us. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.